brief and move on to the next so that we touch on all these issues that are happening. Dr. Alfred Mutua, Governor for Machakos, is joining us online. Thank you so much for making time. Dr. Kimani Wamatangi, Senator Kiambu and Majority Whip, is also here. Thank you for making time. Honorable Samuel Atandi, Member of Parliament Alego Usonga, thanks for making time. And Danstan Omari, Advocate, asanteni sana for coming in. Let's start off with the Daily Nation front page. Uhuru cuts Ruto's power in reshuffle. And Governor, I'll start with you because I know at some point you have to leave because of engagements that you have. Just to hear your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on the reshuffle before we get into the nitty-gritties?
For me, it's quite interesting, and I want to first start by saying jumbo to all our viewers from Kenya, from the US, in Boston, in Atlanta, where you said you were the other day, in Australia, everywhere. Sema jumbo, it's good to be alive this morning. And I'm traveling, I'm actually at the airport, so I'm glad that we can still be able to do this. Now, it's quite interesting when you look at the changes that the president has made. He's basically putting his, his cards on the table and saying that the days of joking are over. When I looked at the changes, you look at somebody like Monica Juma. Monica Juma has been moved to energy because she is a very... If you look at the position that she's been given, remember they all, before she wanted to become, she was nearly being made the chief of staff and everything, and then she was moved, she was in Ministry of Foreign Affairs, did a wonderful job there. She was taken to defense. She was able to get, the Ministry of Defense actually getting involved in development projects. Now she's been taken to energy to fix energy. What does that mean? It can only mean that whoever was in energy, that is Keter, who is associated with DP Ruto, was not doing things properly. As you know that in the last few weeks, we've had this big issue of the power cost. The president has reduced the power of energy, but the problem with the cost of energy in this country, because of the high level of, the high cost of independent power producers. Who are these independent power producers? Majority of them, and I know this because I worked in the Kibaki government, majority of them are people from the Daniel Arap Moi era, and most of them are close associates of some of these people in the Ministry of Energy. So I feel that the president had to do that reshuffle so as to get his agenda moving forward. Yeah. For me, it's not just about cutting people's legs. It's about getting his agenda moving forward. Yeah. The Ministry of Energy now, for example, as I finalize, you find that not the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Defense, moving Eugene to the Ministry of Defense, it's also a very powerful position because you get to decide who becomes a general, because from major going on to lieutenant colonel, and the generals, those are mostly political decisions that are made. Yes, you have to be qualified, but they're very political. So that also gives me an opportunity working with the president. It means that the president, Wamalwa, to be able to move his agenda.
Yeah, but Governor, you have ministers yourself. When one is not performing, do you shuffle them around or do you send them packing?
I've fallen into the same problem, and because when we were in Kibaki's government, we used to wonder why he kept on shuffling people instead of just firing them. At times, it's better to shuffle because you've got to consider this is a person who has a family, who is functioning. Maybe that person is performing, but they're not performing the way you want them to perform. And maybe you want to move them to an area where either one, they do less damage, or two, they can actually be able to be helpful in that area. But I think, to be sensible, politics has been involved in this. And when you look at the political scenario of Kenya, the tribal elements of Kenya, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we're talking about biotechnology. You look at where biotechnology is, and if you have studied biotechnology, you know that there are different aspects of biotechnology. There's medical biotechnology, industrial biotechnology, environmental biotechnology, and marine biotechnology. And then there's a fifth one that is not recognized, inaitwa ujinga wa Kenya. This is whereby we use our tribalism, we use our corruption, ujinga, to try to get things together. So whereas other countries are looking at biotechnology, how to improve the welfare of people, just how to improve the welfare of the states. Here in Kenya, we have this ujinga biotechnology that is just putting us together in tribal cocoons to do self-destruction with all the corruption at hand. So I feel that President Uhuru is also trying to unravel this ujinga biotechnology that seems to be ingrained in our DNA in Kenya, that makes us do bad things that are basically self-destructive.
Yeah. Atandi, what do you make of the cabinet reshuffle?
Thank you very much, Trevor. Let me also take this opportunity to welcome you back from abroad. You are there with my brother. You know, Larry is my brother.
Yes.
I hope he remembers when you are with him that I'm doing a very good job at the constituency.
We'll be sure to ask him.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Again, I think, for me, I think these changes are normal. And they are normal because the president actually is coming to the tail end of his leadership.
Yeah.
And I take issue with the headline, the Nation headline, because when you say that the president is cutting Ruto's powers, basically right now, this is the last budget, for instance, and we already passed the budget. The new cabinet secretary who is being introduced into a certain ministry is not going to do anything much. He's just basically going to finish up what has been done already. So there's nothing like power. But let me just say that, like for instance, the case of Monica Juma being introduced to the Ministry of Energy, I think this is something that I support. Monica Juma is one of the cabinet secretaries who are apolitical. Where basically Monica is a technocrat and who does her job without looking at any political leaning. She doesn't. Actually, there's a time that she was being promoted from the principal secretary to cabinet secretary, and members of parliament actually declined to promote her on the basis that she does not entertain politics in her office. I think there's a time members of parliament were going to her office to seek for favors, and she basically declined. So this is one cabinet secretary who is apolitical, who is competent, and going by the difficulties that we are experiencing in the Ministry of Energy, I think there is no other better person who is capable of doing re-engineering the ministry other than Monica Juma. Okay. So I think the president is basically made these little changes for the sake of efficiency and also to ensure that the ministry, the government moves. Also, Charles Keter, you know, is a politician. One of those politicians who were introduced into cabinet against the constitution, actually, because he had to resign from his position as a senator of Kericho. And so I think that he is interested in going back to his position or running for a different political seat. So this is not a person you want to entrust with the reforms that are expected by the Ministry of Energy. Yeah. Some hand needed to have been introduced. And I think I support these changes. Eugene also is one of the few level-headed cabinet secretaries who are doing a very good job, who is also very competent. Yeah. And I think his placement at the Ministry of Defense is something that I think is going to be good for Kenyans in the area of service delivery. All right. Omari? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Trevor, and viewers of Citizen TV. First of all, when you look at the changes, it's too late. They'll make no sense. But they are going to trigger a serious backlash. Because the question of who has been stealing Kenyans' money, I don't think the CS Monica Juma or anybody, or even the president, has the political will to go for them. Yeah. The question of purchasing of electricity through the independent power producers is a serious political question. These are the dark forces that fund politics. All through. Mheshimiwa, Mr. President in coming, who wants to appoint me as an Attorney General, Wamatangi, puts it very clearly that this cost of electricity, why is it that it is very, very expensive in this country? Yeah. Why is it that even today, when we have a surplus of power, because we have now the geothermal power coming from the Naivasha area, we have the Kindaruma hydropower, still we have diesel-generated power stations. We are exporting power outside, but we are also again importing power from Uganda. It's such a complex situation that when you look at how did we arrive here, Honorable Wamatangi got it right, but he never went back. This is a problem not from the times of President Moi. It is a problem from the times of Kenyatta 1, came to Moi, came to Kibaki. It is now under President Uhuru Kenyatta. Does he have the power to deal with those dark forces? Number two, when we look at those companies, the majority have internationally recognized contracts that bind the Kenya government that they must continue to supply power, even when we don't need it.
Yeah.
We did a similar mistake in handling, as a lawyer, we did a similar mistake in handling the contracts of De La Rue, the money minting contracts.
Yeah.
We are paying heavily. We did a similar mistake in dealing with the airport saga. The shops at the airport, the free duty shop, we were taken to international courts. So this might look very politically good.
Yeah, but has no impact.
The president knows very well that whoever will pay for this decision is not him.
Yeah.
So politically, my good friend Mheshimiwa, they benefit. They are being seen that they are dealing with it, and they have identified that remove Keter is the problem. But when you look at remove Keter, you have not looked at the peers who, peers in Njoroge, who has been in energy since anybody was born in this country. For the first time, this is the first time we have seen the CS of energy being removed. Is it cosmetic? Yes. It is for the optics. It is for the cameras. The problem of electricity in this country, the problem of energy in this country, the problem of agriculture in this country is so deep-rooted with the politics of the day. But when you look at the changes that have been brought in, Waziri, my good advocate, when you talk about Wamalwa, he's a very efficient person.
Yeah.
Is his focus on being a member of parliament, being a CS, or his focus is either at national level or towards being a governor of Western Kenya? Is Keter working for Kenyans, or is Keter moving to Kericho to look for the governor's position? So really, we made a mistake as a country.
Yeah.
Kenyans spoke loudly that we needed technocrats as cabinet secretaries. Under the regime of President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, half of the cabinet became politicians. The mess we are seeing is occasioned by infiltration of politicians into technocrats, the jobs for technocrats. And we can never resolve this matter. And this is what the BBI was trying to say, that we need a mongrel where we have politicians also part of the executive.
Okay.
So unless we are very clear, and I know this one nobody will agree with me, Mr. Presidential candidate, you know very well when I become the Attorney General, CDF is an illegality in the hands of legislators.
Okay.
It is an illegality because of the principle of separation. But it is very popular. You talk to Waheshimiwas, you talk to the citizens, they'll tell you, no, we need Waheshimiwa so that we go to his house at tulipia school fees ya watoto. Until the Kenya is run by the rule of law, and we respect the constitution that CSs are technocrats, issues of implementation of government funds is an aspect of the executive. The legislature drives on the highway of oversight and legislation. Okay. We are going nowhere.
All right. Omatangi, finally on this issue.
Yes, good morning, Trevor.
Good morning.
Let me say good morning to our viewers and my co-panelists on that side. And also, good to hear my Attorney General.
Like getting a job.
My Attorney General, you know, but what we need to agree, AG, is that when I give you that position, I have to give you serious terms of reference. Extremely strict ones. Because I have just come to realize that if I leave the whole field to you, you are likely to overreach your powers and mandate, and you could embarrass your president. So be warned before we sign your job. No, but anyway, I think some of the points he's made are valid.
Yeah.
Others will need just a little bit of punctuation, and then others, I believe, we can agree, which are not right. But Trevor, for any employer, any employer in any category, any sphere of life, part of the responsibility of a CEO, a head of a department, a head of a corporation, head of an entity or any government, part of your responsibility in management of the people you have entrusted to help you run the enterprise is continuous assessment of performance of the people you have given those responsibilities. And that performance is assessed against milestones, against performance indicators, against achievements. And as you progress, you may find that somebody you gave a job who was a good performer at the first time, continuously, probably along the way, will run out of steam. They may run out of options or innovations as things change. And that is where you find that in any system, it is not only permissible, but it is good, it's good sense in management to pick your lieutenants, your heads, and move them in areas where you can try new competencies. And you find that at the end of the day, you may achieve very, very useful progress. For example, by even just that shuffling. And so that's why I think that the move itself to reshuffle some of these people in the areas that may have, in the recent past, looked troublesome, like, for example, in the energy docket, then in the other dockets, is not in itself intended. Otherwise, and I think that would answer the question that you asked. Wouldn't it then be just good to fire somebody if you think that they are an absolute non-performer? And that's why you find that these gentlemen and ladies were not fired. They were just interchanged. Once you do that, you may be surprised. You find that the competencies they may have had in the new areas where they'll be that are going to be useful to the country. There are errors they could have made probably by having overstayed in some of those dockets they were in because they became either too complacent or maybe they were overtaken by innovations and this kind of thing. So what I just want to say in summary is I don't think that it is intended in bad faith. There is a mechanism of firing people who do not perform. And I believe that would happen. As far as this argument about are we right or are we wrong in having come up with this concept of having independent power suppliers, I think, in my view, Trevor, the idea itself was not bad from the word go. It is the abuse. It is the failure by people to live up to the expectation of those that came up with this idea. Remember, when these power suppliers were being, when it was perceived and they were given that responsibility, the idea was you would go to certain companies, then you find that they're companies with the resources, natural resources. They have got water reservoirs in the place, and they have big dams, they have whatever, and they have the capacity to produce power. And the question then that was, if you allowed these people to produce power because they have what you need to produce power at that particular time, if they fed into the national grid, would it help meet our deficiency in power? And if they had lived up to that and ensured that the cost with which they are supplying their power is proper and agreeable according to the rates that are good for the public, then there would have been no problem. So I think the problem is with the abuse of that process. Lastly, is the perception created by my AG there that politicians are very bad. that in general, you can condemn all politicians that if they're ushered into an arena, for example, like in technocracy, that they're just going to come and mess up. But indeed, AG, you may find yourself very soon in politics with all your finesse in the legal arena. And that does not make you a bad lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, and so what happens is that you have bad people, no matter where they are. You have very terrible technocrats, very bad ones. Some of them are terrible thieves. You have very bad politicians. You have very bad doctors. Anywhere you go. That is why you even have athletes who dope and cheat. And so that does not mean that all athletes are bad. Do you know, they are very, very, very good politicians. They're extremely good people in other areas. So I think let's just agree that we allow people to do what they're supposed to do in the areas they have been given. The ones that don't perform, they can be sent home. I would agree with you that in our current framework, CDF is an illegality. Unless it is made legal, it is made legal correctly in law. And what I was seeing that members of the National Assembly were trying to do, and if it had been realized in the BBI process, then it would have been very good if it was done properly in law that way. The law that was made that came with the national government, blah, 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 that one, does not suffice fully. And ensuring that there is a proper framework within which you can implement that fund without either the conflict at county government level and so on. But we also must say loudly, AG, that CDF has done most of the transformation in our sub-counties, by the way. If you go to most sub-counties, you go and look at those small dispensaries, police posts, whatever, it is the CDF money that did that. It is not that they did it badly.
Yeah.
It has been used well in most cases. They have transformed and helped people. They have lifted communities. It is only the framework that it was set against which should have been legalized correctly. Okay. But otherwise, the fund itself has been useful to members of the public.
All right, let's...
Trevor, there's something which let me just say that...
On the CDF issue?
Not really. Okay. I want to agree with Senator Umatangi.
Yeah.
That we are not very bad people as politicians.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of
just
us...
a little bad.
Some of us left private sector to join politics.
Yeah.
We led in private sector, so now we are leading in another sector.
Yeah.
So we are not, we should not be painted as the devils, as the AG is trying to say here. But I wanted to say here that I wanted to ask him, we have had some of these technocrats in cabinet since 2013.
Yeah.
Would anyone be able to defend any of them as having performed other than there would be a politician?
Okay.
My answer has always been that possibly the Uhuru regime has been painted as non-performing because of the caliber of these technocrats in cabinet. And that is the reason why I still insist that we need to change the constitution to allow members of parliament to sit in cabinet, because when the members of parliament in cabinet, they will be able to know the issues on the ground and be able to put them into implementation. Okay. This is really a gap which these technocrats do not understand, because they don't engage with the people.
Okay.
And lastly, I don't think it's fair to paint the efforts of the president in realizing changes at the energy docket as futile, because somehow there must be a regime that will create some of these changes.
Okay.
Right now, we are discussing the issues of industrialization in Kenya, and we are being told that it is not possible for us to industrialize because of our cost of energy. Somehow, something must be done, and I think we need to support the president. Okay. We should not say that the president, these changes will not be realized. I think the president has sufficient goodwill and is determined to make these changes, and I think it's the right time to make these changes.
Okay.
Before a new regime, because Baba will take over when some of these things have been cleared. We don't want Baba to take over power with these baggages. Okay. Yeah, so I think let's support the president, and I think these things will work.
Okay, swinging of the race to 2022, and let me bring in Governor Mutua on this. Over there, in fact, it was just during this week, there was a meeting.
I'll be done up here.
Governor Mutua, there was a meeting of the Mount Kenya Foundation leaders, and also yesterday I saw Deputy President allied MPs saying that that meeting can be considered a meeting of the high and mighty, but all of it was a battle for Mount Kenya region because they're 7 million votes strong. Is that where the focus should be, considering you yourself are running for the head of state position?
Well, that's a very good question. Before I even talk about that, because I think this will be my concluding remarks also, because I'll have to rush, to revisit this issue, I totally agree with Senator Matangi. I totally agree with my good friend, Honorable Atandi, that politicians are not bad people. And I think lawyers should never be in any position to talk about the negative perception of other professions. You know what people think about lawyers and we politicians. I think it's all about service. But I also wanted to talk about just the reshuffle. It also shows there's a certain confidence in women leaders. And we've got two very bright leaders. We've got Monica Juma, we've got Dr. Kobia being given higher responsibilities. Because as we know in this country, women are less corrupt, women are more efficient, they are brighter, as we know. And so it's also something to say. It's not about people being removed. It's also an indication that when you give women power, they're able to do it well. And that's why we've got, and I'm very happy, we've got a Chief Justice who's a woman, we've got women are rising up in the ranks in Kenya. And we need to support our daughters, our wives, our mothers to get to higher places, because when women are in power, we realize that the country is able to move forward. So it's a bright thing for us when we promote our women.